Shalom, this week's Parsha, Parshas Vayakhel, Shabbos Mebarchim, Chodesh Adar Sheni, Misha Nichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. I'll start with a quote from Yalkut Shimoni on Parshas Bahaloscha. Im shamartem nero shel Shabbos, ani mar elochem nero shel Tzion. Chazal tell us about Amida K'neged Mida. If we watch and are careful about nero shel Shabbos, we will be shown nero shel Tzion. So we know Chazal don't just say things and play with words. There must be some connection, Mida K'neged Mida, between the idea of nero shel Shabbos and the idea of nero shel Tzion. Tzion referring to the Harbayis, to the Beis Hamikdash. So the first three psukim of the Parsha, Vayakhel Moshe es kol adas b'nei Yisrael, vayomer aleihem ele hadvarim asher tzivah Hashem la'asos osam. Sheishes yamim te'aseh melacha, uvayom hashvi yelachem kodesh Shabbos Shabbosayin laHashem, kol ha'oseh b'ay melacha yumas. Lo yisavaru eish b'chol mashvosechem b'yom haShabbos. So Moshe Rabbeinu gathers together Am Yisrael and gives us the mitzvah of Shabbos, specifically Lo yisavaru eish, the prohibition of not lighting fires on Shabbos. The Medrash Rabbah tells us, Avos melachos arba'im chaser achas. We know that there are 39 melachos, prohibited actions on Shabbos to do. Dechsiv Eila hadvarim, we learn it out, it's hinted to in these words, in these psukim. Eila shloshim b'sheish, the gematria of the word Eila is 36. Devarim would be 2 because rabim shnayim, and hadvarim is shalosh. If you put together 36 plus 2 plus 1, harbe arba'im chaser achas. And another hint to the shloshim, the 39 malachas, ba'al haturim, v'chein timtza, the word vayakhel, ad lo yisavaru ish v'chol mosvosechem b'yom haShabbos. In these three psukim, if you count up the words, you get 39 lametes tevos chutz mimilas haShabbos. Meaning altogether there are 40. The last word is haShabbos. Don't count that in, and you get 39 malachos of Shabbos that are asur. And the next pasuk after that, Vayomer Moshe al kol adas b'nei Yisrael leimor, zeh hadavar asher tzivah Hashem leimor, k'chu me'etchem truma laHashem, kol nediv libo yivaena is trumas Hashem, zahav v'chesef unechoshes. They are referring to the mitzvah of building the Mishkan. So we have these two inyanim in the parsha. First of all, the mitzvah of Shabbos, and then comes the mitzvah of building the Mishkan. We see how it was carried out. If we want to get the timeline here, Vayakhel Moshe lemachras Yom HaKippurim kisher yorad min hahar. Meaning that what's the exact day of the time of this happening, of these mitzvahs were given? The day after Yom Kippur. So let us remind ourselves that Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai to get the Torah, following the Matan Torah on Vav Sivan. He went up for 40 days and he came down on Yud Zayin Tammuz to see the Chet HaEgel, and he broke the luchos. And from then on, from that point, he went up 40 days. The first 40 days to beg forgiveness for Am Yisrael, he was not successful. He came down and went back up Rosh Chodesh Elul for another 40 days, and then he got on Yom Kippur Salachti Kidvarecha, and the next day what did he do after he came down? He collected together Am Yisrael and gave them these mitzvahs. So we can understand Moshe Rabbeinu's mindset, that what's foremost on his mind is to be mitakein Chet HaEgel. So much could have been accomplished. We could have been already been in Yemos HaMashiach, the Hashras HaShechina, but everything just went and was destroyed by the Chet HaEgel. So the call of the hour now was to rectify all the damage and rechannel all this energy that facilitated the Chet HaEgel, rechannel it and bring back the Shechina to Am Yisrael. So So the Or HaChaim says, "Va'od lama tziva alav samuch lemitzvas ma'aseh hamishkan lidvarenu yavo al nachon ki yitzav Hashem al tikun ha'avar kedei sheyihiu muchsharim lishkon besocham Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to make the situation able that His Shekhinah should rest among us again. Uva mitzvah Shabbos sheshkula kachol haTorah hitakanas avodah zara. This will be a tikkun, keeping Shabbos. Sheneh kam omro ashrei enosh yaseh zos v'dorshu zal kol hashomer Shabbos kihilchaso afilu ovei avodah zara kedar enosh mochalin lo. So Shabbos will give a tikkun and will rechannel whatever mistake was made and will undo the damage. So the Medrash follows this and says, Vayakhel Moshe, Zesha Amar HaKasuf, Mi kehachacham umi odea pesher davar. That's a pasuk from Koheles. Ashreihem hatzadikim, sheyodim la'asos b'shara bein Yisrael la'aviyam Shabbat Shamayim. Tzadikim know how to fix the break that happens by Averos between Am Yisrael and Aviyam Shabbat Shamayim. Lefichach Amar Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom Vayakhel Tavo va'asu li mikdash usechaper al maaseh ha'egel. Not just Shabbos, but also the building of the Mishkan. V'techaper al maaseh ha'egel. Shene'emar bo kumasei lanu Elohim. V'tavo kihilas Moshe Rabbeinu shenamar Vayakhel Moshe es kol adas v'chulu. V'techaper al kihilas Aharon dechsiv Vayikahel ha'am al Aharon. That means if we look at the Lashonos, we also find a Lashon of Kahal, Vayikahel ha'am al Aharon. And the result of that Kahal was a Chet HaEgel. So here he comes and he Vayakhel Moshe in order to fix that. Shenemar, Vayomer elav kumasei lanu Elohim. Tavo amira zeh hadavar v'sechaper al amiras ki zeh Moshe ha'ish. So we find the word zeh also by zeh hadavar. Vayomer Moshe kol adas b'nei Yisrael zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem, the fourth pasuk of the parsha. Zeh hadavar referring to binyan hamishkan, and will be mechaper on zeh that they said by the ki zeh Moshe isha Elokim, and they didn't know what happened to him. Zeh. Tavo Eile Hadvarim, by the mitzvah of Shabbos that we saw in the second pasuk, Usechaper al Amiras Eile Elohecha Yisrael. Tavo Nesinas Hazahav Hatnufa Usechaper al Nesinas Zahav HaEgel. So we see there was this mistake and there was this fix by Moshe Rabbeinu in Parshas Vayakhel. Va'alav Amar David alav hashalom heitiva Hashem latoivim v'liyusharim b'libosam. Again, the Medrash here isn't just playing with words. The Medrash is alluding to a very lofty concept that is referred to in Chassidus as is hafcha chashocha linahora, taking a concept, energies, and rechanneling the forces that were instrumental for implementing evil, transforming them and channeling them into positive, constructive forces to achieve lofty goals. Vayakhel Moshe Rabbeinu Balei Agada Omrim Mitchilas HaTorah V'ad Sofa in Parshas Shenemar B'Rosh Vayakhel Elazos Bovad. This is the only mitzvah in the Torah that Moshe gives over with the lashon of Vayakhel Moshe. Tavo Kihilas Moshe Rabbeinu, like we said, Shenemar Vayakhel Moshe Usechaper al Kihilas Aharon Dechsev Vayikahel ha'am al Aharon. We see over here an idea. What's kahal, Vayakhel, Vayikahel? That's a collective, a group. A group can very easily disintegrate into a mob. There's energy that's generated by a collective, and it's very powerful, and it can accomplish very monumental things. But when people group together, and the energy there is negative, panic, frenzy, fright, and weakness, like we saw in Parshas Kisisa, the results were devastating. Kahal, this power of the group, of the aggregate. And David HaMelech says, Sanesika al Mereim. I despise a group that gets together to do evil. We find such groups in the Torah. We find a group like this in the Torah, also by the Egel, and also Ezek Kahal. The Medrash continues on Tehillim, Zekahal Korach. Shenemar, Vayakhel Alehem Korach. Ule'eze kahal ani ohev, David HaMelech says, Vayakhel Moshe. And another example is, that's here in our Parsha, another example is, Az Yakel Shlomo. And that was to bring the Aron back from Ir David to the Mikdash, to the Beis HaMikdash that he had just built. Ve'im Rishayim lo eshev, the Medrash continues on Tehillim, Ze Adaso Shel Korach. Okay. The call of the hour now, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down, was to rectify the damage, we said, and rechannel this group energy. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says the Medrash, Aseh lecha kihilos gedolos, udrosh lifnehem barabim hilchos Shabbos, kedei sheyilmedu mimcha doros habayim lahakil kihilos b'chol Shabbos v'Shabbos, lichnos b'batei medrashas, l'lamed u'lahoros liyisrael divrei Torah isa reheter, kedei sheyehei shemi hagadol miskales al banai. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, this is what you should do. Gather together groups, large groups. And what should you do with these groups? You should teach them Torah. You should teach them Torah now, and from now and to all further generations who learn from you. They should get together on Shabbos. Shabbos is a day of rest. We're not working. We're not involved in all the mundane activities of Olam Hazeh. Get together. Use your time and use your energy together to gather and to teach Torah, to learn Parshas HaShavua, to learn Divrei Chizuk, and to daven together. Umikan amru Moshe tikein lahem liyisrael sheyihu dorshim b'inyanei shel yom hilchos Pesach. Pesach, not only Shabbos, there are other days of the year that we're on so-called vacation. Hilchos Pesach b'Pesach, hilchos atzeres b'atzeres, hilchos hachag b'chag. Amar Moshe liyisrael, im atem osim keseder hazeh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu male aleichem ki ilu himlachtem oisi ba'olami. We're crowning Hashem in this world. Shenemar v'atem edai ne'um Hashem v'ani kel. V'chein David hu omer. We find the same idea by David HaMelech. Bisarti tzedek b'kahal rav. Bisarti is a lashon of basura. It's coming to tell us news, good news. And the Medrash continues, Uma basura hayu Yisrael tzrichim b'mei David. David HaMelech's time was like Olam Haba. There were no wars, and when they did go to war, they were all victorious. Halochal yamav shel David me'ein dugma shel Mashiach haya. So what was this bisarti tzedek? Ela poseach v'doresh lifnehem divrei Torah shelo shematen oizen Wow. So there is this idea of getting together, using groups for positive and constructive and great ideals. So understand this energy and beware. There's something that we said, group energy generated by the collective. It can easily turn into a mob. It can easily turn into a gathering of Lashon Hara and Kina and all the not good things. Don't let that happen. Whenever you're together in a group, you're sitting around, don't just talk idle talk. Take advantage. And like on Shabbos, we get together with the family, we talk Divrei Torah, we should show support and love to our children and to our everyone that's there, the orchim. Maybe there are unfortunate and lonely people. Take advantage of this energy and use it to build the world. We know that that's what we're actually supposed to do. We're supposed to, with everything that we have, my whole me, Hashem mikamocha, we're supposed to declare the greatness of Hashem. So the chidah on the pasuk in this parsha, the second pasuk where it says, Uvayom hashvi yeh lachem kodesh, it could have just as well yeh kodesh, that the seventh day should be holy. Razel Pershu, the Chidah says, Ki ksiv l'cha o lachem. What does that mean? Lahanoaschem. It should be for your pleasure. V'zeh yomar she'afilu ba'achila u'b'malbos shel Shabbos. How are we mechabe the Shabbos? Yelachem kavana shehu l'chvot Shabbos, through the delicious foods that we prepare, for the beautiful clothes that we save for Shabbos. Dafka. V'zeh she'amar yelachem afilu ma shehu la'anoaschem. Have things that you enjoy, yeh kodesh. It is sanctified. Shehakol l'chvod Hashem shetzivanu l'chabed haShabbos. So when we save it for Shabbos, we wear it on Shabbos, we eat the delicious food on Shabbos, we get together with that wonderful energy of the collective, of Kehilos Kodesh. So Hakol L'chvod Hashem Shetzivanu L'chabed HaShabbos. So Hakol L'chvod Hashem, Hashem gives us this world in order to sanctify it. That was the drasha of, we'll talk about it later, of the Kutzker who said, Hashemayim shamayim la Hashem v'ha'aretz nasan livnei Adam. Hashem gave us this world and everything that's in it and all the energies that are in it in order to turn the world, to transform it into Shamayim. Okay, so we have another example in the Parsha here, along this same line. And that's to be found at the end of the Parsha, Perek Chavches, Pasuk Ches. Vayas es hakiyor nechoshes ve'eskano nechoshes. B'maros hatzovos asher tzovu pesach ohel moed. So we're given a list of everything that was made in the Mishkan and from what it was made. And then comes the kiyor, which would be the washing container for which the Kohanim would prepare themselves by washing their hands and their feet before they started out the Avodas HaKodesh every day. What was it made out of? B'maros hatzovos. Now that's something Yosei Dofen. We didn't hear about this yet. Asher tzavu pesach oel moed. So the Mefarshim try to figure out what this is talking about. And I read here from the Medrash. Kevon she'amar la HaKadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe la'asos es haMishkan. So Moshe receives the mitzvah of building the Mishkan. And he gives it over to Am Yisrael. Amdu kol Yisrael v'nisnadvu. Everybody was so excited. Here they have a chance to fix the horrible thing that happened with the Cheda Egel. They all come. They all want to give. Mi shehevi kesef, u'mi shehevi zahav, o nechoshes, v'avnei hashoham, v'avnei miluim, heviu bizruzus hakol. Everything was brought with such zerizas, with such enthusiasm and speed. They had to say, they had enough. Moshe Rabbeinu has to say, stop, we already have enough. So Amru Hanashim, the women were standing there, Ma yesh lanu litein b'nidvas hamishkan. What can we give? What can we give of our possessions? Amdu v'heviu es hamaros. So they brought their mirrors. They all brought their mirrors. V'holchu lahen etzel Moshe. The mirrors were made out of nechoshes. What they would do was they would polish it, highly polish it until it was very, very reflective, very, very shiny. They brought these things to Moshe Rabbeinu. K'shera Moshe son hamaros zaf bahen. He got upset with this idea of bringing mirrors to the Mishkan. Amar lahen liyisrael tulu maklos v'shabru. Should come and break them. Hamaros lama ein tzrichin. What do we need mirrors in the Mishkan? Very inappropriate. Okay, I'm going to now read, I'm jumping to Rashi, who brings a very similar lashon. B'nos Yisrael, hayu biyadan maro sharos bahem kishehem miskashtos. When they would beautify themselves, they would look into their mirrors. Vav osan lo ikvu milahavi lenidvas hamishkan. So they also brought those, as we saw. And here's a lashon of Rashi. V'haya moes Moshe bahem mipnei she'asuyin li yetzer hara. He didn't want them. He despised them. Like we saw in the Medrash Tanchuma, he said, take them away from here, break them. We don't need them here. But that's not what Hashem said to him. I'm going back to the Medrash. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, leMoshe. Moshe, al elu ata mevazeh? What are you being mevazeh? What are you belittling these maros? Hamaros ha'elu hein ha'emidu kol hatzvaos halalu b'Mitzrayim. Hatzvaos we see in the pasuk. Hatzovos. Hatzvaos meaning like armies, large amounts of people. That's hemidu. That's how large amounts of people came to come out of Mitzrayim through these maros. Tolmehem. Va'aseh mehem kir nechoshes v'chano lakohanim. What are they used for? That means this kir was made out of the maros, out of nothing else, just these maros, which were very, very fine. Nechoshes copper, shemimenu yiyu miskachim hakohanim, Shenemar vayasa sakir nechoshes ve'eskano nechoshes b'maros hatzovos asher tzavu ba'osan maros shehemidu kol hatzvaos ha'elu. Rashi goes into a little bit more detail. And he speaks about what happened in Mitzrayim. What happened in Mitzrayim was Paro made a gezerah that the men can't sleep at home. He did not want them to procreate. And we're going to see why in a minute. So they were out in the fields all day and all night. So what did the wives do? They would go and cook food and give koach to their husbands, and they would feed them, and then they would take their marot, they would beautify themselves and encourage the husbands to procreate. B'yoldo sham, shenemar tachas hatapuch uraticha, v'zeh shenemar hamaros hatzovos, meaning they even gave birth in the fields because the Mitzrayim were against the birth of children. Zeh shenemar b'maros hatzovos. V'nasa hakiyar mehem, and he brings a different usage for the kiyar besides the kohanim to be miskadesh every day. It was also lasum shalom ben ish leishto lahashkos mimayim shebesocho lemisha kinela ba'ala v'nistara. Okay, I want to go and concentrate on this idea. What happened to the men in Mitzrayim? We know that Amram despaired because Paro, for some reason, he was totally obsessed with the idea of stopping the birth rate. Hava nischak malo pen yirba. And let's see why this was. So there's a perush called the Parshas Drachim, and he delves into this deeply. His name was Rabbi Yehuda Rosanis, and he says in his Sefer Parshas Drachim, on the pasuk, Ger yezaracha be'eretz lo lahem va'avadum v'inuosam 400 shana, and the following pasuk, va'achrechen yetzu b'rechush gadol. So, one second, yeah. So he says on that the question, Am Yisrael had a gezerah of working for Mitzrayim 400 years. And after that, they'll go out, b'rechush gadol. But 1 second, we weren't in Mitzrayim for 400 years. We were only there for 210 years. Ma pitom. How could we do that? How could we go out of Mitzrayim when the pasuk says, Va'achrechen, after 400 years they'll go out, b'rechush gadol? So he says, V'nemru b'zeh shnei terutzim. He'echad hu koved ha'avodah. The intense quality of the work. K'dichsiv v'yimaru es chayehem ba'avodah kasha, b'chomer, u'b'lveinum, u'b'chol avodah b'sadeh. V'chol zeh lo haya bichlal gezeras Hashem shel va'avadim v'yinu es hamarbamo shana. Doesn't say anywhere about avodah kasha, b'chomer, b'lveinim. It just says va'avadim v'yinu esam. Because Paro made the work so intense and they worked so hard, back-breaking work, because the intensity of the work, 210 years and even less than that, just the few years that they worked, they put in the work of the quality of the work of 400 shana. But not only that, he gives another answer. Od amru terutz acher. Dema shenisrabu Yisrael shelo kaderech hateva k'dichsiv uvnei Yisrael paru vayishrutu vayirbu vayatzmu b'moed me'oed. And the Rashi says, Shisha b'keres echad. They had such a population explosion way above the natural birth rate. Hishlim hacheshbon shel 400 shana. Klomar, the amount of work, the quantity of work, they were able to do in much, much less years. Machmas We had to go out after 210 years. Why? Because another minute in Mitzrayim and Am Yisrael would have fallen to Nun Shari Tuma, which would have been irretrievable, unsavable, irrevocable. They had to go out the minute that they went out, and that's why we have such a little difference between chametz and matzah. The hay and the ches, it's just a tiny little piece of os there. It was just a tiny, short fraction of time that divided between Am Yisrael being able to be saved and chas v'shalom not. And the women understood that, but the men didn't. Amram Gadol Hador Haya. He just heard about Paro, who was also concerned about the birth rate. Pen Yirba, he was so concerned that the Mepharshim say that when it says Vayakhel Melech Chadash, it wasn't a Chadash Mamash, but it was that he had Tzara'as, Vayamas Melech Mitzrayim. His wise men gave him the advice to kill out 150 babies in the morning and 150 at night, 300 babies every day, in order to shech them, to bathe in their blood, in order to save himself. And that's why he goes on to tell the Miyaldos to kill the babies. And that's why he goes on to tell all of Mitzrayim to find a baby boy and throw him into the Yor. Paro knew what was happening. Amram despaired. He said, what can we do? We just shouldn't have babies because it's just lashavam anu amelim. We're just having them for nothing. And he separated from his wife, and a lot of Am Yisrael separated from their wives, and then along came Miriam, and in her nevuah told her father that that's not the way to do it. And he went and he remarried Yocheved, and then the Moshiach Shel Yisrael was born, Moshe Rabbeinu. So, Lazeh Amar de Bishvil Nashim Tzidkaniyos Nig'alu Yisrael miMitzrayim de Bishvil Shehishtadlu Lihizdakek Leba'alehem B'nisrabu Yisrael Shelo Kederach HaTeva Nishlam HaKetz Kodem Hazman Uga Alam. Just because of all the Nashim Tzidkaniyos that understood that the importance of the birth rate would be that would enable Am Yisrael to go out of Mitzrayim and to be able to be saved. And now we have a deeper understanding of the very strong lashon that we find HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying to Moshe, who was moes by him, ason liyetzer hara. He even told them to break them. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu kavel ki elu chavivin alay min hakol she'al yedehem ha'amidu hanashim tzavaos rabos b'Mitzrayim. So al yedei hamaros ha'eleh, this is what facilitated the Geula. And Heim ha'amidu kol hatzvaos ha'elu b'Mitzrayim tol mehem, Hashem says to Moshe, va'asei mehem kiyar nechoshes v'chano la'kohanim. Kohanim is a most elevated level of Am Yisrael. Shemimenu yu miskachin ha'kohanim shenemar vayas ha'esakiyar nechoshes eskano nechoshes b'maros hatzovos asher tzavu. B'osan maros shehemidu eis kol hatzvaos ha'elu. These maros facilitated the beautification of the women in Mitzrayim, which enabled all to procreate, and all of the tzvaos shisha b'keres echad, that there was an Am Yisrael who were redeemable, and they were redeemed from Mitzrayim. So that's the Medrash, and that's Rashi on the Maros HaTzovos. But if you look in Rashi goes through everything that I spoke about, and then there are a few words at the end which are worthy of our noticing them. Lazeh Amar, once again, L'chein Tirgem Onkelos B'Mechazias Neshaya. So the Targum Onkelos on the word Maros HaTzovos is Mechazias Neshaya, the women's mirrors. Who Targum Shel Maros, and then he uses a blaz which sounds like mirrors. He says mirrors. Okay, so he proved to us that maros are mirrors. And then he brings proof from somewhere else in Tanakh. V'chein matzinu, it's not the same word. V'hagil yonim, which is a word that we find in Sefer Yeshayahu Perek Gimel. Mitargaminan mechziyasa. And the targum for Gilyonim are also mechziyasa. So just like the Gilyonim are mirrors, so the maros are mirrors. But one second, they're not the same word. So let's examine the context of that word in Sefer Yeshayahu. Sefer Perek Gimel, if anyone is familiar, that's the notorious tochacha of Yeshayahu Hanavi to the Benos Tzion. As we know, Bayis Rishon, Alma Necharav, Avodah Zarah, Gilei Arayos, and Shvichos Damim. Where do we find the Gilei Arayos? Here in Perek Gimel, Yeshayahu addresses them. Ya'an ki gavhu benos Tzion v'telachna netuyos garon umesakros einayim halach v'tapov telachna uveraglehem ta'achasna. How they would walk around in Yerushalayim and poison the men through their usage of chav dalet tachshitim, 24 different tachshitim in order to beautify themselves. And one of those tachshitim that they used were these mechziyasa, these mirrors. So what were the totzah of those mirrors in the time of the Beis HaMikdash? Va'anu va'avlu p'sacheha v'niksa la'aretz teshev. Nikasa la'aretz teshev. Obviously, the totzah was Churban Beis HaMikdash. But one second, that's a pretty stark contrast. And Rashi is bringing the word from there, the object that was used there in Perek Gimel, to help us understand what maros are. That's a very negative connotation there. There's a very negative usage. Terrible. Churban Beis HaMikdash, Gilei Arayos. The total breakdown of morals that was facilitated by mirrors. But not here. Not here at all. This fits in what we spoke about. We're here to transform and elevate the world. Kadosh Baruch Hu Hashemayim Shamayim LaHashem V'ha'aretz Nasan Livnei Adam. He gives the world over to us. He gives it over to receive all of the energies, all of the inclinations. We said group energy. We spoke about ochel. We spoke about clothing. We speak about all these cosmetics and tools. They can bring to destruction when they're abused, when they're used with weakness and panic and jealousies and all the other marin bishin. But if used properly, we can transform them and elevate them to all kinds of wondrous levels of Kedusha. The Rabbi Nachman says, Shabbos, hitoch kol ha-mitzvot. You can find something of Shabbos in every single mitzvah that we do. Hanimtza bam, kavana l'shem shamayim. Any mitzvah that you do l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, in order to elevate the material, the things in this world, is called Shabbos. Any kavana, zeha kavana nikre Shabbos. Any mitzvah that we do, and especially on Shabbos that we do, l'shem shamayim, l'chvod Hashem, is elevated. And now we come back to our original question at the beginning of the shir, Im shamartem nero shel Shabbos, ani mar elechem nero shel Tzion. Now look at this ma'amar of Chazal. It doesn't say ani ar elechem with an aleph. It says ani mar elechem. I show you now the nero shel Tzion if you keep Shabbos properly. In Kedusha, we know that there's a realm of space, Kedushas HaMakom, and there's Kedushas HaZman. Kedushas HaMakom, what's the Makom? HaMakom, obviously, is Har HaBayis, Kisei Kavod, Moro Merishon, Makom Mikdashenu, we say Zeh Shar HaShamayim. The Kisei HaKavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is parallel to the Makom HaMikdash. The Zeh Shar HaShamayim, Rashi says, by Yaakov Avinu, he exclaims, this is the gateway to heaven. All the tefillos that we daven in this world first come to the Makom HaMikdash and then ascend to Yerushalayim Shalmala, to the Kisei HaKavod. But we don't have access to that physically today. But Kedushas HaZman, which is Shabbos, we do have access. Every Shabbos, we're coming into that elevated and sanctified space. Im shamartem neira shel Shabbos. So if you keep Shabbos properly, even though we don't have that space yet, animar elachem, maybe also today, we get a glimpse every Shabbos, every Shem Shamayim, into neira shel Tzion. So we finish today the Parshas HaShavua with a fervent tefillah that we may all be zoche to be shomer Shabbos kehilchasa. May we all be zoche to be mechaberes HaShabbos, to be ma'anegas HaShabbos. The right away when Shabbos goes out, and I daven Ma'ariv, I'm already davening for the next Shabbos to come, Aleinu L'Tova, that we should be zoche again to keep Shabbos. And everything that we do, the Shmira Shabbos, and all the Noshim Tzidkaniyos, B'schusam, and B'schus all of the Tzadikim who are Moser Nefesh, the Chayalim, and anyone that does any mitzvah, L'Shem Shamayim, we should all be zoche. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be Merape the Cholim, Merape the Ptsuim of Tzahal, and Sheyavi Abaisa Kol HaShvuim Ne'adarim Briyim U'Shleimim L'Chik Mishpachosehem B'nitzacha In Gadol La'amcha Beis Yisrael V'kadesh Hashimcha B'Olamecha Kishmeinu Karasa B'Shmecha. A good Erev Shabbos and a Chodesh Tov U'Mvarach Yerushalayim.